Hi, today we're in Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge in central Minnesota on our way to Montana, but staying with, I'm originally from Minnesota and I'm staying a couple days with family and friends who live very close to this area. This is a kind of an unknown gem in my opinion. I discovered this place over 20 years ago when I used to live here. And it's not a national park or anything, but they got a lot of beautiful little wetlands in here. And you might be able to hear some trumpeter swans behind me. Colors on my palette: titanium white, cadmium yellow light. This is really close to cadmium lemon, cadmium orange, yellow ochre, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, viridian, and sap green. A couple different changes in my palette. I am leaving off, at least for now, burnt sienna or transparent red oxide. They're almost the same color because this is mostly a backlit scene. I could see me really using that earth tone as a crutch, and I don't want to do that because I have a tendency to possibly make things too dark, being that I've used that color with ultramarine blue for so many years to get darks. And it's a good idea sometimes when you've been painting for a while and you always find yourself going to the same color and it starts to sometimes be a problem for you. Sometimes leave it off and experiment a bit. Also, sap green, that's a new color on my palette. I usually would use chromium green oxide as my warmer green, but chromium green oxide is very opaque and it's an incredibly strong color. And the reason why I didn't use sap green before is I had an apprehension towards it because I had heard that it was a very fugitive color. And back in the 1800s it was, because they were using berry juice or something like that to make it. But apparently modern sap green is not like that. It's much more permanent. So I thought I'd give it a try. So I'm just putting on a very thin light wash for my background sky. There's going to be a lot of dark trees in front of it, which are going to be hard to paint around once I get things going. And it's a very, very breezy day here. I have to have everything kind of mounted down, and there's a lot of clouds moving in and out. It's kind of why I chose a backlit scene, because backlit scenes don't change as much as foreground scenes. And by the way, if you like this video, give me a like. It helps the algorithms. Leave a comment below or a question you might have, and I'll do my best to answer. And what I do is I show the YouTube public, the first 20 minutes or so of this video, and then the rest of it is reserved for my Patreon subscribers. So if you want to watch this video in its entirety, become a Patreon member, click on the link below. $5 a month. You can watch this, some videos I already have on there, and my upcoming videos in their entirety without commercials. At least without mid-roll commercials. So you don't have to worry about commercial interruptions. All right, so I got a dark mixed here, but I think, actually, I got ahead of myself. Let's figure out what's important in this scene. So we have the trees up here, we have the wetland here, and I got to figure out, do I want to focus on the trees or do I want to focus on the wetland? And I think I might want to do the wetland. There goes some swans. So let's block in some of these more distant trees first. I'll take a bit of cobalt blue and some white. And let's throw in a touch of alizarin to tone that down, and a little bit of yellow ochre. So get an approximate value. This is a very secluded area, but there is even going to be a car or two that'll come by here. Mostly what I'm going to have to contend with, though, is deer flies and the occasional bumblebees I see going on around me. So when you're doing a scene like this, there's some beautiful trees in the foreground, and then there's a beautiful wetland in the foreground. It can be very tempting to try to get all of that in there, and one probably could, but you're going to have a stronger painting if you put an emphasis somewhere. Now those trees, I can paint trees like that all day long in central Pennsylvania, where I currently reside for various reasons, mostly family, but I can't paint wetlands like this in central Pennsylvania. So I'm going to go for the wetland. That's going to be my intention here. I'm going to have to move my paper towel bag because it's getting pretty close to the solvent can. Man, when I decided to start painting, it looked like it was going to be mostly sunny, but the clouds have really moved in now. Yesterday it was almost 100 degrees. It was 100 degrees here. And today it's cooled down significantly, but it's also very cloudy. Looking back behind me to the west, it does look like it might eventually clear up. So right now I'm going to focus on approximates for drawing. I'm not going to try to use the green that I'm seeing right now because that's being illuminated by overcast light. And when the sun comes out, it's going to be different. I don't know exactly what green it's going to be. So I'm going to mix just an approximate and draw in my wetland. The wetland, we have a bunch of vegetation, and wetland comes about here. I'm not going to draw this wetland exactly how it is. I'm going to use what's there as an inspiration. In fact, I might, let's get rid of that. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm painting on, it's just oil prime linen that I cut out and taped down. Okay, there we go. I got a little bit of sun on my scene now. But it's oil prime linen that I've taped down onto a piece of masonite just to hold it down and hold it steady. All right, let's go for interesting shapes right now. What is the shape that I want to make this water that's going to make it somewhat interesting? Let's block that in. You want to totally ignore details at this time. In fact, when you're plein air painting, you want to totally ignore details most of the time. You shouldn't be out here for details, you should be out here for color and value. challenge with a scene like, or with sky conditions like this, is it's hard to get color and value because it's constantly changing. All right, so let's get in some approximate shapes of the trees. When you're plein air painting and you're dealing with constant changing light, you want to ask yourself a couple questions before you start. First of all, unless you're really experienced, and even then it can be a royal pain, but want to ask yourself, look around, look at the sky conditions, and just say, am I going to get consistent lighting today? And if the answer is no, can you deal with that? And I'll ask myself, am I going to get the lighting that I want for this scene? Is it going to be mostly sunny? Is it going to be cloudy? And if the answer is no, you're not going to get consistent lighting, or it's not going to be the lighting you want, honestly, I would probably not paint that day, or at least wait. But you got to kind of become a bit of a meteorologist too. Look around in the sky, check the weather stations, and just see what they're saying as far as lighting conditions. If I plan on plein air painting, I'm constantly changing or checking the weather. I wish I could change the weather. And then when you get on location like this, I have to make a decision with the light coming in and out. Am I going to do this as an overcast scene, or am I going to do it as a sunny day scene? And that really is going to depend mostly on your sky conditions. So I'm looking, I have an idea where the clouds are, where the wind is moving, where the clouds are coming from. So I will look back at the source, and it looks like there's a lot of blue sky back there. So I'm fully expecting this all to open up soon in the sunshine. If I look back and I saw mostly clouds, then I have a decision to make. Do I keep going, or do I do it as a mostly cloudy day scene? Okay, so I have some trees blocked in here, and I want my main opening to be right over here. The wetland is going to lead into there. It's not how it is in the scene, but that's how I'm going to paint it. It's because hopefully it'll make a more interesting composition. Now this is just a sketch, so if I get home and I don't like it and I decide to paint this later, it's no big deal. I can easily fix that up. Okay, looks like the sun's going to come out for a while, which is good. And right inside here, there's quite a bit of brighter green. So let's take some cad yellow light, tone that down with a bit of ochre and sap green. And it's a little dark in value, so I'm going to lighten that up with some white. I don't want to go with more cad yellow right now, cad yellow light, because then it might get too intense. The titanium white that I'm using is actually an alkyd, which is a fast drying oil paint. And it can be nice to use. I notice how I went over that with these darks and it did not get into the darks, even though I'm technically painting wet on wet. And it's because it's pretty much set up already. It's very tacky. It's windy out here, it's warm. So that's gonna cause that alkyd, once you get it on canvas, to dry very fast. Let's get an approximate of the water, the color of the water in here. It's a pretty ambiguous, cool color. It's fairly gray, and I have a feeling that's because of all the clouds that are above me. This water, the white part of it is a lot of ripples because of all the breeze. And then you have some areas that are not catching any breeze, and then you have the dark reflections from the trees and the grasses. See, now normally I would just jump right into that transparent red oxide, that earth tone for this, but I don't have it, so I have to think now and go for something different to get kind of the same effect. Now, when you're painting water, don't think of it as water. Look at it, it's just shapes of color and value. You start thinking of, and that's how you should always paint. Whenever you're painting, is don't think about the subject matter, especially if it's one that intimidates you. Sometimes we get a mental freak out because it's like, oh my goodness, I'm painting water, and you just don't want to do that. So just ask yourself, okay, there's a shape there. What color is it? What value is it? And then proceed to paint that. If you paint the right color and value and put the approximate shape in there, you're gonna have what you were trying to capture at the end. This breeze is tough, but what's kind of nice about it is that this is the month of June when this is being recorded, kind of getting toward late June. And now that's interesting. I had sap green and alizarin, and I basically get brown. Huh. It's interesting seeing what these colors do. I wouldn't recommend trying a new color and just going out and plein air painting like this. This is not the best idea for me, because the color might behave differently than you expect, and it could cause a problem for you. Especially if you're newer to painting. I know it's romantic to grab a new color and just run out and try it, but test it at home first. Mix it with other colors and see what it does. Anyway, so this is getting toward late June, and actually today is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. But when you're in these wetland areas at this time of year, the bugs will just murder you. The mosquitoes in the evening, and during the day, it's the deer flies and the horse flies. And they could be just as nasty, sometimes nastier than the mosquitoes. So the breeze, though, while it's a pain in some ways, it's super nice because it's keeping those mosquitoes away, or those deer flies away. All right, so sun is out. This water kind of comes like this. Okay, so let's continue to make adjustments. Back in here, might have got a bit too yellow. So let's cool that off a little bit, or neutralize it some. If I have one color that's really jumping out more than the others, I will have a tendency to go in and tone that baby down. That yellow is really sticking out compared to everything else. And maybe at the end it has to. I can always make it more intense, but I don't want it screaming at me. You know, when the painting's finished. I always seem to get this. There's a line of clouds going right over me. Just like a quarter of a mile either direction, there's no clouds, but there's one right over me. I feel like Eeyore. This happens to me a lot when I paint. It just annoys me to no end. It's like, why do the clouds have to be right over me? So I'm kind of painting from memory right now. So when dealing with this stuff, when the sun is out and you want to paint it in sunlight, look at the scene and just ask yourself, okay, what kind of green is it? What's the value, first of all? And is it a warm green? Is it a cool green? Is it neutral? Is it more intense? Usually greens in nature, they're going to be pretty neutral. Can almost guarantee you that. And put that impression in. And then when the sun comes back out, take another hard look at it. Like I said, I'm hopeful that eventually I'm going to get some nice stark sunlight. It looks like the clouds are mostly gone behind me. And sometimes, you know, a situation like that, I'll just stop painting for a little while and wait till the sky gets to where I need it to be. One thing I will follow, though, when I'm doing this is the whole principle of aerial perspective. No matter what the light is, I'm going to have less yellow as I go further back and more yellow in the foreground. That applies no matter what, except for some local color situations that might happen. Okay, as the great prophet John Lennon once said, here comes the sun. So this definitely helps. This is so much nicer when the sun stays out, if you're doing a sunny day scene. And there it goes again. The other reason why you have to be careful, where sometimes it's just not even worth trying to do this, is if the sun's going to disappear for quite a while and it's going to come back, say like a half hour later, well, depending on what you're painting, the sun is still moving across the sky, and so all your shadows and everything could be significantly different if it comes out. So if you're not going to get sunlight for at least an hour or a half hour or something, you might just want to scrape it down and go look for something else, or head back into the studio. And don't beat yourself up, but just go, okay, wasn't my day. That happens a lot. So I'm going to stop this and move on to the Patreon only group. If you want to watch this video in its entirety, become a Patreon member. $5 a month. I post usually a couple times a month, and so basically it's $2.50 per video to watch the whole thing. They're usually at least an hour long. Sometimes they go significantly longer, but you can watch it there. Click on the link below. I also have my online classes that I teach where we go even further in depth, and you can find some information on that below as well. That's going to the next level where I fully explain everything. But anyway, thanks for watching. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and we'll see you again.